Hey, Cleaning Nation. I don't know about you, but it is my favorite time of the podcast year. We have our friend, the amazing Suzanne Bandick. For those of you out there that don't know who she is, big mistake. Um, she helps our clients. I'm really good at tactical, what to do and how to do it and how to build and all that good stuff. But we found people have more trouble with doing the things they know how to do than knowing what to do. And Suzanne is just one of my favorite humans in general, but specifically when we move from like, all right, how do I take all this stuff rattling around in my head that is not giving any benefit to my business or my life and make it actually transform? So that is what she is world class at. What piece, slice, or aspect of that do we want to look at today, Ms. Bandick?
Ooh, thank you for asking, Mike. I thought we'd look at something really fun. And this is a mindset game, a good mindset game that we can play to help us more easily get the results we want.
Mhm.
And the specific game I want to talk about is called segment intending. So a segment is a specific part of our day. So when you get up in the morning routine could be a segment of time. If you get in the car to drive somewhere, that's a segment of time. If you go do a meeting, a segment of time, just as if you were to have lunch, a segment of time. Okay, so we can divide our day up into these little bitty segments of time. And if we focus on a desired result in each segment, we're more likely to get the result we desire.
Hmm.
And I have to give credit where credit is due. This actually comes from Abraham Hicks. I learned it many, many years ago, and I use it myself in my life. So you want me to run through some examples?
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's say you get in the car to drive from point A to point B. You could, as you put on your seatbelt, by the way, I taught my kids to drive and I taught them to do this as part of their driver's ed. You put on your seatbelt and you affirm safety.
I love that.
Okay. Simply affirm safety. You can affirm all the traffic lights are green. You hear the best songs if you're playing the radio. You get there easily, efficiently, with no traffic. You're affirming what you desire to see happen. Okay.
Funny when
Then
I
let's go ahead.
I was just going to make a small anecdote when I was dating my bride, um, showing off because I was silly. I would just tell her all the time, I always get the best parking spots. They'll have one waiting for me. I've called that, or I've sent it ahead. There'll be a great parking spot. It's waiting for me. And I'll be honest, it was not 100% accurate, but it was 3 or 4x what I would typically get. And it was fun. First of all, it was just a delight because if it wasn't, she'd stick it to me because I had it coming. And many times, if not most times, there'd be a spot and it was always so much fun. And she was just like, how do you do that? I'm like, that's how my life is. And funny enough, I did it when we were dating and I kind of stopped doing it. I'm like, you know what? Even though it's just to impress the pretty girl, it's probably not a bad idea. The concept should still work just because we're now married. So sorry, silly anecdote, but I can vouch
It,
100%.
it's perfect because any area of our life.
Oh, could you do
So,
that? You snagged up for about 5 seconds. Could you just repeat that, Suzanne?
oh, I'm sorry. It's perfect because we can use segment intending for pretty well any area of our life. So, and it's those people that when you get what you want, people look at you and they say, "You're so lucky." Well, is it really luck or is it partly my focus? Right? I'm going to win. I'm going to win at bingo tonight. I've done it with games I play. I've announced I'm going to win and I've won.
I'm
So
going to
it
give
certainly has a hand in it.
I wanted to give two observations and a specific question.
Mhm.
Observation one, one of my favorite things I love so much about Suzanne, and I've had the honor of getting to know her husband a little bit as well. And when we're together, I hear her say all the time, I meet the nicest people. I always meet the nicest people. Wherever I go, I always meet the nicest people. And part of what I love spending time with Suzanne and Sean is they always have the great stories. And the great stories are always about their neighbors and just they're always just everyone they seem to hang out with are just the best people. So I just wanted to make that acknowledgement out loud because I'm guessing Suzanne probably didn't even know she kind of intended that, or maybe she does, but I just wanted to make that observation. And then and I had two observations. I've already forgotten one, so I'm going to go right to the pointed question. So I love all of the, like, obviously our personal lives are more important than our business lives, but how could that or should that look in relation to growing a cleaning company specifically?
Okay, perfect question. Let's talk about a bid, a sales, a walkthrough, right?
Mm.
Let's say you're doing a walkthrough. What's the focus? What's the intention? What's the outcome you desire? What if you have to do a price increase? Oh, we go through this. It sends people through the scare wall,
Yeah.
right? Oh my goodness. But how about if you pre-intend the conversation you desire to have? So let's do some examples. Let's say the price increase conversation. If you intend that you're going to have a great rapport with the person, you catch them at the right time, you have this discussion, and they go, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea. I was so underpaying you. We value your service so much. Of course, that's worth that." Isn't that a lot better to think of that before you do your price increase conversation than, oh my gosh, what if they say no? What if I lose them? And then I'm going to be homeless on the street,
Mm.
right? The same thing with a walkthrough. Before you do the walkthrough, you would simply intend, I'm going to meet the greatest people here. We're going to get along really well. Potentially, we're going to share some laughs, right? Whatever your milestones and your goals are. Their home is the perfect type of home that we would want to clean. They're those people, and they're going to say, my goodness, we would love to have you clean my home. Okay. Another thing could be the meetings. You go to do an interview. So let's say you're doing group interviews. You affirm the right people show up. You affirm that you have great conversations and that you find the right people that are the right core value matches for you.
So those very specific examples help me jog my memory onto the second observation I had. The thing about this, what did you call it? Segment intention?
Segment intending.
Yeah, segment intending. Thank you for making it more active. The thing about segment intending is there's no opting out, right? So for those of you like, that's dumb, I'm not doing it. Like, oh, yes, you are. You may not do it on purpose and you may not do it intentionally. But if you don't have a intentional intention, you will have a default intention of this is going to stink, it's going to be stressful, and the default, I don't know, you can tell me if you feel I'm wrong, feels like 80% of the time it doesn't serve us, that default. And it's not 100%, right? We have people all the time like it's going to be miserable, and we still coach them through, and they do it, and they come back and they're just delighted because, oh my gosh, that conversation went better than it thought. And there's sometimes you really intend for the best, and we get people that are just pains in the necks, and that's that. That said, for all of you that are kind of like me, they're like, well, that sounds woo woo. Like, give me the, I don't say what they say the science, but give me the, like, how, like, just because you want something that doesn't have anything, you can't do that. Like, how does that work? Suzanne's going nuts, and you can feel free to jump in and give your probably better, I'll give my perspective on how I've seen that play out in the world. And then you can fill it in with probably a much clearer picture. Just having been on, all I do all day is talk on Zoom calls with clients, potential clients, vendors, my team. And if I go on, and this is my team I love, who I've met, spent hundreds of hours with, if I go on going, this is going to be a terrible meeting, they're all the worst, I have to do this, it sucks. The likelihood that meeting is going to go poorly is just high because I'm giving off non-verbal signals that are probably going to translate into my verbal cues that I'm displeased, I'm unhappy, they're not sufficient, I'm not sufficient, our mission isn't worthy. And if I come and just going like, can you guys believe what we get to do and the people we get to help? How could it possibly not affect the other humans in the room? And to just be like, no, I'm exactly the same, regardless of how I show up. It's like, that's crazy. That's just not the case. And, if you've done sales for any amount of time, like Suzanne used that as an example, man, when you're like, it's just funny how when you get a bad client or two, and I shouldn't say a bad experience with a client or two, how all of a sudden bad clients show it continues. We have great ones. Like it seems very streaky. And the last kind of little analogy I've heard, and I'll turn over to Suzanne because she probably give a little more depth on why, but I'm giving kind of more anecdotal data. Is one of my, I don't call it a parable, but short stories was the man standing at the crossroads between two cities, and he said, a passerby came by and said, "Oh, I'm going to the city on the right. Like, how are the people in that city? Or have you been to that city? Oh, I've been to that city. I spent a lot of time there. How are the people? How do they find you? Are they good?" He goes, "Well, tell me about the city you came from. How are the people there?" And he said, "They were terrible. They were all evil and angry and violent." He said, "I am so regret to tell you that you'll find nothing but the same there." And the next guy comes along and asks the same question about the same city. He says, "Yes, I have spent time there. What did you find about your city?" And he says, "They were amazing people. They were beautiful, just kind, loving, sweet." And he goes, "Good news. The people in the city are exactly like that." And obviously the people in the city hadn't changed, but the man understood that how they came, what they brought to, people are people, right? Oh, women are this, old men are that. It's like, well, depending, if you come to women with a certain attitude, you might get some of that coming back. So, all right, there's all the anecdotal stuff. Suzanne, feel free to fill in my blanks with actual well thought out evidence and data. Mike Campion here. Do you ever listen to the podcast and go, "This is great information. I just wish I could actually get it implemented. And I wish I could get some help"? Well, we do that. If you would like either myself or my team's help actually coming up with a plan that's specialized to you and your business, because with these podcasts, obviously we have to be very general and we can only go 20 minutes at a time. If you'd like to jump on a call with myself or my team, go to growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. We'll jump on a call. There's no charge, and we'll help you get some absolute clarity around exactly what to do next and how to do it. The reason we don't charge for these calls is the plan that we come up with, people want help implementing that. If that's the case, we're happy to talk about it. And if it's not, that's okay too. We're happy to just help you come up with a plan. So if you want to translate the information you're learning here into an actual plan that can change your life, give us a ring, growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. Love to either myself or have one of our coaches walk you through and actually personalize the content you get here to where you're at with your business. Talk soon.
Mike, I love what you interjected because it's focus and expectation. We get what we're focused on. We get more of that. We get typically our expectation. Is it 100%? No. Are there other factors in play? Yes. Typically, are we increasing the odds in our favor? Yes, absolutely. Yes. We're tipping the odds in our favor. Because it's what we're focused on. And a little side note is the more you focus, you repeat the focus, let's say going back into the car for a minute, the more you intend safety, it almost becomes something that plays in the background all the time. You tend to get that more easily. The parking spots that you said, yeah, you get that more often, more easily, because it's almost like a subroutine that, yeah, this is my life. So the same way, if you focus on, you do your walkthrough and you intend to get great clients, and for that to usually go very well for you, more often than not, it goes well. And when you get the moments when it doesn't, you go, "That's kind of weird. That's odd that it didn't go my way. Like, that's not usual for me." Then you know you're in a good space.
I couldn't agree more. And I like the specificity of the segment, because if it's just kind of this generalized, like, always think everything's going to go well, it's like, well, there's no real specificity. But I also like when you start specifically, it becomes a habit. Like when you trot driver's ed of like, oh, I'm gonna have a safe thing. I'm gonna be alert. I'm gonna catch anything. If you do that often enough, it now becomes your global default, and it does get bigger. So I don't like trying to get big because I think it's hard. But if you try very specifically, I think it can grow into a global belief system that really can have a pretty big impact. Last thing I'll say, just because again, one of my favorite things about having Suzanne on, I think, is her background and mine are so different. I can speak to in a way that people that might not hear Suzanne be like, "I get this guy." And I know a lot of things Suzanne says people love, and they're like, "Who is this knucklehead talking with her?" So it's I think we can resonate with a large part of you guys, Cleaning Nation. But high level athletes, I don't know of any that don't consistently segment intend, because that's what they do, right? They get paid for this 5-minute sprint, this 60-minute game, this whichever. And I don't know any of them that don't intend, like, if one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Last Dance, and it tells a story of Michael Jordan, um, with the 6 championships with the Bulls. And the things that I take away are his teammates really didn't say he was a nice guy. Like if you see him on, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be nice, that's not the point at all. But if you see him on, all the advertising, things like that, he comes off as really sweet, nice, like they made him this character. Like, oh no, he was terrible. He was just so intense. He didn't give a crap. Like he had to win. And he would do stuff like he talks about literally how this guy made the smallest slight to him in a game, and he would use that, and he would, and again, I'm not saying this is the way you would want to do it, but he would create that intention of, he said that to me and I'm not gonna, and he would just light them up the next game. And he even mentioned how some of it he made up, didn't even happen, the slight never, he just literally was so there's, every high level athlete I know is very intentional about how they approach and how they feel about the game. And it's funny when we're not at that high level, we're like, I don't know, that sounds a little woo woo to me. And it's like, well, it's most of the high performers I know do not poo poo this kind of intentionality. And many of the people that struggle, I find, do, I don't say poo poo it, but they're a little less zealous about setting intention. All right. I've said all I have to say. The rest of the time is your sister.
Well, to add on to that, absolutely. You see, high performance athletes who succeed have usually pictured in advance where they will be, or the outcome of the race, or the outcome of the competition.
Hmm.
They have pictured themselves succeeding in advance. And one of the things that we often don't realize with our mind, I've been talking a lot about it lately, is that the things that we repeat to ourselves, we take in as truth.
Hmm.
So it's when you repeat the negative things, you're going to believe them. I'm not good enough. I didn't do it right, etc. You believe that. How about we say the good things?
Hmm.
Okay, so this is going to go my way. This is going to happen. I'm going to win. I'm going to increase my income this month, right? If you focus on the good things and you keep repeating those good things, just like the athlete who stands, we just went through an Olympics, stands on the podium as number one. That athlete repeated the picture again and again and again, and the thought again and again and again of them being number one on the podium.
Hmm.
That's part of how they got there. I'm not saying they didn't have to work at it. It's not all mindset, okay? But part of the success is the mindset, and that's how they got there. So part of our success is taking these segments of time, not even our entire day. We can say our entire life is great, but it's really much more powerful to say, in this portion, this is what I'd like to see happen.
I've even heard high level athletes say it was almost boring when they won the thing because they literally lived it and experienced it so many times. They were like, yeah, this is exactly like I've been here. I've done this. This isn't that big. Like, not to minimize their achievement, but it was so rote. And that really ties into what Suzanne says is we're almost surprised when we lost. Like, wait, I didn't picture myself on the second tier of the podium. I pictured like what something's weird about this. And again, I can't agree more with what Suzanne's like. It's not all of that. Like you can't just sit around and visualize, but certainly at the highest levels, right? If you're going to compete and, at the Olympics, yeah, they're all freakish out athletes. Like, of course, like that's just table stakes. Like to even get in the conversation. Yeah. They all work every day, all day for their whole lives. Of course, that's table stakes. So at the highest level, it's like, hey, this is what we need to compete. Imagine if you're not a freakish athlete or not a freakish business owner savant and you don't have all that stuff, why wouldn't we use every tool that we had at our disposal, especially when many of the people we're going to compete with aren't going to do that? So it's just, I don't know. I'm not good enough to leave any tools on the table that someone else might use because I'm not that particularly smart or that particularly hard working. So like, if I can get some of this other stuff, like pick up the tools, man. This is a good one. I like this tool way better than hard work and suffering.
It's going to become a habit.
Yeah. Well, either
So,
way, good or bad, it's going to be a habit.
right. So, you're going to go through this period of time, whatever you need to do, you're going to do it anyway. How about you just stop and take a breath before you do it and you affirm some good stuff?
All right. I'm gonna, if I may, as we wrap, I'm gonna wrap that into or weave that into how I typically end. And I typically end with the call to action because I know I get a lot of people that just like to back listen to the shows, but don't do anything. So typically I would say, well, don't just go on to the next show without taking any action. Then we haven't got any help, right? If you learned a bunch of stuff, but next time you run into that opportunity, you don't do anything different, you might as well have not learned it. Like you're just as bad off as if you didn't learn the thing than if you learned the thing, but it doesn't make any difference in your behavior. So now instead of taking action, or instead of just taking action, I should say, if you're one of those guys or gals that's like, man, I've been listening to the show forever. I needed help. But Mike always says, man, I could reach out to the team. They'll jump on a call. They'll help me, no charge, just to help get some clarity and figure out a plan. But I'm afraid they're going to try and sell me something, or it's going to be a bad experience, or they'll tell me to do something I'm afraid of, or I don't know, they're a jerk, whatever. That's obviously setting an intention for that segment of your life. Do the opposite. Go, well, man, I've listened to a bunch of these podcasts. He seems pretty normal, whatever. The team seems like they actually give a crap and they know a couple things. I'm just going to decide that if I reach out, it's going to be great. And I'm going to get some clarity. And whatever needs to happen on that call is going to happen. And I'm going to leave that call and just intend it. And feel free, if you jump on with myself or one of the team, you go, I listened to the podcast that I'm intending, and tell us, here's what I decided this call was going to go. And let's just see, put it to the test, have a little bit of fun. So that's a option for sure. For sure. Pick something in your life that you're going to create and intend, whether it's a drive or your business, or the next time you speak with your wife or your kids, or whatever the case may be, create something intention. If it's with the business, maybe it's something that you've heard before and were afraid to do because you'd forecasted some negative outcome. Choose the outcome that you want to make it happen. So there's your challenge. Go get it. Hopefully we'll hear from you soon. I can't wait for somebody or a couple of somebodies to reach out and go, I heard that podcast. This is going to be amazing. Here's how this call is going to go great. And you, man or woman, can't wait to talk to you. Talk soon. See ya. Hey, Cleaning Nation, if you dug the content you just got, we don't do any ads and I don't sell anything on this podcast, but if you would just subscribe, rate, and review, it would be huge and I'd be so appreciative. Not only is it going to help me, but you'll help other owners of cleaning companies across the world work less, make more, and get profitable. So if you appreciate the value we give, again, subscribe, rate, and review. It'd mean the world to me. I'd really appreciate it. And we sure appreciate your time and attention.